Have you heard? There's an election coming up in the city of St. Charles. Proposition R will be on the ballot Tuesday, April 6th. Prop R is a general obligation bond issue that would provide funding for police and fire to make much-needed facility upgrades and repairs, and to tear down and rebuild 2 fire stations. Prop R is not an increase to your personal property tax. It is also not a use tax, which was proposed in Proposition 1 last year. You may be wondering, how can the city pay for this without raising taxes? Well, the city has a low amount of debt. Because of this, the city has the ability to absorb more debt without raising taxes. So even though Proposition R would be funded through your personal property tax, it would not result in a tax increase. That's because the city can afford to take on the debt associated with Prop R under the current tax rates. You might also be wondering, if the city can afford this without raising taxes, why does it need voter approval? The city is required by law to receive voter approval to take out a general obligation bond. The city could obtain this funding without voter approval through something called a certificate of participation. However, a general obligation bond offers lower interest rates and lower costs than a certificate of participation. So, in the end, a general obligation bond would spend less taxpayer money than a certificate of participation. Another question you might have: why has the city allowed these police and fire facilities to fall into disrepair? The city only has so much funding for capital projects, such as facility improvements and upgrades, available in the budget each year. A lot of the money for capital projects comes from gaming revenue. Gaming revenue has been steadily declining over the last few years, and that was before COVID-19. As you can imagine, the pandemic caused gaming revenue to decline even more in 2020. So, with less funds for capital improvements available, the city had to prioritize these projects. That meant money went towards imperative projects like road improvements and repairs, and less money went towards city facilities. So, if Prop R passes, the money goes to police and fire. How is it being divided up? The fire department would receive $10 million for 4 stations. 2 of these stations would undergo infrastructure upgrades and repairs, and the other 2 would be torn down and rebuilt. The police department would receive $7 million for infrastructure upgrades and repairs to their facility on Zumbell Road. The Municipal Court would receive $3 million to relocate to another facility outside of the police department. This would open up more space at the police department for evidence storage and staffing. So, to reiterate, Proposition R is a general obligation bond issue on the ballot April 6th. If passed, Prop R would provide funding to the police and fire departments for much-needed facility upgrades and repairs, and to tear down and rebuild 2 fire stations. This general obligation bond would be funded through your personal property tax without raising the current tax rates. It is not a use tax. Due to a decline in gaming revenue, the city has had to allocate funds to more imperative projects, which has resulted in these facilities requiring important repairs. For more information on Prop R and to watch virtual tours of these facilities, visit stcharlescitymo.gov/Prop R. Remember to get out and vote on April 6th.